Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webcast. My name is Andy Lennox. I'm the president of Logix Brands. I'll be moderating our webcast today. And it's not going to be very long. It's going to be about maybe a 20 or 25-minute presentation. The topic, how to quickly pivot to a Logix ICF foundation if you've got conventionally designed house plans. We've got a few handouts in the control panel that you can feel free to download if you'd like. Our field guide, which is essentially our installation manual, and a few different uh, brochures and such that you can take a look at. There's a box in your control panel to ask any questions that you have. And this is intended to be an interactive presentation. So if questions come to mind, feel absolutely free to type those in and we'll respond back to you individually, or we might even pose questions back to our presenter. We might deal with the questions during the presentation, or we might wait till the end and deal with a few at the end. We'll just see how things go. Today we've got Francis Roma presenting. He's our our director of technical services here at Logix Brands, and we also have Win Peck, a territory manager for us in the New York State area. And Win has been involved in many of these plan conversions over his long career in the ICF business. So we're here. We're good to go. Francis, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Andy. All right, so thanks everyone for being with us today for this webcast, how to quickly pivot to a Logix ICF foundation from conventional house plans. So this is a short webcast on the basics of what you need to keep in mind when you're looking at converting a conventional foundation design to a Logix foundation. So we'll look at what needs to be considered, why you would want to convert your foundation to Logix, and including how to get started on a conversion. So before we begin, just a quick background on who we are. As a consortium, Logix Brands offers the strength, stability, and resources of a multinational organization while also providing the support and attentive service that you would expect from a nimble local business. So we make a number of foam building products that includes Logix ICF, Halo, a rigid insulation board products, and Heat Sheet, which is an insulated floor panel system designed for in-floor radiant tubing. So we help builders solve the biggest problem they face, the shortage of skilled labor, on their ongoing quest to improve building envelope performance. So with our products, a lot of the times it skips steps, or it's a multifunctional product. So you do save time there and labor, and it does help with your skilled labor shortage. Our engineered installation products that I just listed, they're shaped, modified, and enhanced to simplify installation, save time, and eliminate construction steps. Okay, so why upgrade to a Logix ICF basement? Well, there's a number of benefits building with Logix compared to conventional build. There's no floor rentals needed, can be built by regular framing crews, and it's really simple to use. It's a faster build and less waste. You're not dealing with conventional formwork, having to set it up and take it down and getting rid of it. With Logix ICF, you're simply stacking these, pouring it, and it stays in place. So it's a faster build and creates less waste on site. Premium living space that feels like another main level of your home, and that's because it's super insulated and airtight. So you create a very energy efficient wall system with Logix. Condensation proof. Condensation can be a problem with insulated foundations in cold climates if it's not done properly. With ICFs, you don't have that issue. And there's no need to build interior frame perimeter walls. So with Logix ICF, you can just stick the drywall right onto the ICF without having to frame in front of it. So those are some of the benefits using ICFs. So let's start with an example here and look how we go about converting an existing plan set to Logix. So what we've got here is an 8-inch concrete foundation wall with a 2x6 above grade wall. So let's look at what's involved if you want to convert this to a Logix ICF foundation wall. We'll look at the design considerations first. Starting with the footings, this typically isn't an issue if you're just doing your foundation wall. It's going to stay the same size. You might have to realign it because your foundation wall is actually going to be a different thickness, and that's only usually a few inches. With step footings, most common step footings, 24 or 16 inches. With 24 inches, you can use our 2 courses of V12 blocks, or with 16-inch step footings, use our 16-inch high Logix Pro blocks. By using these step footing increments, there's no need to cut on site. The less cutting you do on site with the blocks, the faster the build goes, and the easier it is too. So ideally, these are the increments you want to use for your step footings. Your ICF wall will be thicker as well, and that has to be considered in your design. So with a conventional 8-inch thick basement, it's going to increase by 3 3/4 inches if you choose Logix 6 1/4-inch concrete core. The form panels are 5.5-inch thick in total, so 2 3/4 inches on both sides. If you stick with the Logix 8-inch concrete core, that's going to make the wall 5.5-inch thicker. The nice thing is, though, you can make up for that because you won't have to do any framing on the interior of your basement. So because your walls will be thicker, there's some options that you need to look at and consider how you're going to include this in your design change. So the easiest option is to keep the outside of the ICF wall in line with the existing design. So basically, from the image that you see here, the original design on the left side, if you maintain that outside dimension with the ICF, there's no change to the building footprint, and there's no change to the main floor living area. You do lose space in your basement because you are dealing with a thicker wall, but again, you make up for it because you're not having to build a frame wall around your basement floor either, or basement wall. Okay, so this option, excuse me, is dependent upon no or resolvable design conflicts in your basement. So possible design conflicts could be your rooms might get smaller, so you have to consider if that's acceptable. Look at your washrooms. Do you have to relocate your tub because it's conflicting with your thicker wall? Location of the stairs, make sure it doesn't get too narrow. So those are just some design considerations. So the design conflicts are more common if your basement level is designed and finished. And the other alternative option is to keep the basement living space intact and expand the building footprint. So if you keep the inside face dimension as shown in the image here, what happens is your main floor walls and your roof system, that will have to be tweaked by your designer because your floor spans and your roof spans are going to increase. Typically, it's only a few inches, maybe 6 at most. In this case, additional design fees are going to be required because of that. So the material costs are going to increase as well. Another item to consider is the wall height of the foundation walls. It's likely you're going to have to change your wall height to match our block heights. That's the most efficient way to build with ICF. The less cutting you do, the better. So if you can match the wall height to increments that match our block heights, there'll be no cutting. Typically, ICF foundation wall heights are 9'4". That's 7 courses of Logix ICF Pro block. But you can go in 4-inch increments as well if you use a combination of V12 and Pro blocks in your wall heights. So this wall height change, it won't affect the permitting as much, but it should be accounted for in the excavation stage because it could lower your footing elevation, which is only typically a few inches. And you also have to consider the design of your ICF wall. We do have prescriptive engineering tables that you can use if it's just a foundation wall. Site-specific engineering isn't typically required, especially if you're just converting your foundation wall. Considerations that you have to include is soil density, wind pressure, snow loads, bearing capacity for your footing. Really no different than how you would design a conventional concrete foundation wall. Also consider using taper top blocks for your top course in your design. This is where your sill plate will sit, so it provides more concrete bearing surface for your sill plate. It ensures the sill plate stays in the same location if you're trying to keep the outside dimension the same. And it's recommended in all instances. So let's look at what you should consider during the construction phase. Garage slab to sewer slope. So your new foundation wall height, when you do your conversion to ICF, it's likely that your wall height will change. So that has to be accounted for in your excavation depth. And still make sure that the minimum slope is maintained for drainage from garage slab to sewer. Also, the ICF sill plate, so the sill plate that's going to be sitting on your ICF, that might add an additional 1.5 inches to the foundation wall height. Not a concern for building officials, but just make sure you bring it up to the builder's attention so they can make their own adjustments. Waterproofing the ICF walls. Waterproofing is recommended for ICF foundation walls. There's a number of different applications and products you can use these days. Peel and stick and dimple board is still the most common one. Parging at the transition to the main floor veneer. So this can be accomplished with parging, metal siding, faux stone. So really anything that you would have put on your conventional concrete wall, you could put on your ICF wall. Okay, so let's look at occupancy permit considerations too. An ignition barrier will be required. So the exposed foam on the inside of the wall, it'll need to be covered by an ignition barrier. You could either just put your drywall up and leave it as is, or you can finish it, tape, mud, make sure all your services are behind the drywall as well. But check with your local building official to make sure you're meeting all their local requirements in addition to that. Okay, so we looked at what needs to be considered in a conversion to Logix ICF. The next step is how do you make the conversion? Well, option one is download the ICF foundation wall section from the Logix ICF technical library. So we have a CAD library in the technical library. There's a number of different wall sections in there. Hopefully you can find one that already matches your design. If you don't, contact us and we'll help you put a wall section together that you can include. We do that in-house for you. And then secondly, download the appropriate wall engineering table from the Logix ICF technical library or from our app, the 1 Minute Engineer. So with those two documents, attach it to your plan set, label it as an alternative ICF foundation option. This only works though if you have elected to keep the building footprint as the original and had no design conflicts to resolve or very little. So this is the easiest option. The other option is to redesign your plan set. So for typical and simple designs, this isn't hard to do. For more intricate custom plans, it's a little more complicated. You might end up having to have additional engineering work. But it's something that we do a lot from our end. If there is additional engineering work and it requires an engineer, we try to do as much work as possible for the engineer on the design side, and he can simply just sign off on it. And hopefully that saves him time and our customers money. Okay, so already submitted for permit. So what happens if you've already submitted your plans for permit? For option 1 and 2, you have to resubmit for permit anyway. So this essentially requires you going through the process of having to add additional documents to your existing permits, whatever your local building code or officials require. Okay, so that was a quick intro into converting conventional foundation to Logix. Hopefully that gave you a better idea of how to go about the conversion process, what to consider, and what we can do for you at your end. One thing that I noticed that I didn't mention is when we do the conversion, we're converting everything that is required to be converted. So if you're converting your foundation plan, we're not just converting the walls, we're converting the connection details, any connection details to that wall, so the floor, etc. We'll make sure that all the elevations are changed and points out any conflicts that you might have with the design or on site, so your designer can make adjustments at their end as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Andy, but before I do, I just want to thank you all again for taking the time to be with us.
Well, thank you, Francis, for that overview. And it's a pretty straightforward process to make a simple conversion if you're planning to keep your outside dimensions the same, and if you already have your plans in place. So, but if you want to, anyways, but Francis went over everything, and thank you very much. Everybody who's watched this will be receiving a recording of this for future reference, so you can always refer back. We have a question actually, and I'm not sure if it should be Win or Francis handling this, and it may be a complicated question. This is from Mary Elise, and she'd like to know, are there any issues with a daylighted foundation having walls changing sizes? For instance, if she were to have a west, north, and south foundations and walls with 8-inch ICF and a south wall of 6-inch ICF. Do you understand that question, Francis?
I think so. Wayne can correct me if I'm not right, but basically you're looking at changing your wall size as you transition horizontally. If that is the case, we actually do have details on how to do that and how to support it during construction. And we could provide you CAD drawings if you need it for your design as well.
Have you ever done that in the field, Win? Had an application like that?
Yeah, it's yes, it's not difficult. It's just you can do it horizontally in the middle of the wall, or you can do it at the corner, which is actually the easier place to do it. You don't use a corner form, then you'll have to make a butt corner at the corner, but that's the easiest place to do it as far as I'm concerned.
All right, thank you. And Tristan has a question. Does Logix ICF carry a fire rating? And I'll throw that over to you, Francis, to start.
Logix does carry a fire rating. So our 4-inch concrete core has a 2-hour fire rating. And pretty much anything above that is a 3 or a 4-hour.
All right, well, those are the questions that we've had so far, and I think that's it. Everybody, you're going to get a little survey when we log off. If you have any other questions that come to mind, feel free to tap them in, and we'll certainly circle back to you. That's the end of our 20-minute time slot that we have for the session today. And listen, I just want to thank everybody for taking your time and for spending it with us. We always appreciate your interest in our products and services. Win, thank you for being here to help out. And Francis, the last word is to you.
Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, everybody.